Geocachomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads. Welcome to episode 223 of the GeoGearHeads. I'm the Daryl W4, back once again with the Bad Cop, and we have a pretty exciting show tonight.
Well, you are the Daryl W4. I don't know if there are any others.
W4.
But yes. Well, we are very excited to have Nate Irish. He's the product manager for Geocaching Apps joining us tonight. So thank you, Nate.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me.
Well, we're happy to have you on, and you're one of the employees with geocaching.com. As I recall, you've been there nearly since the beginning and have worn several hats there over the years. But when was it that you actually started, and what were some of the roles that you've filled over those years?
Wow, I've been here a long time. So I started geocaching in 2002, and my brother introduced me to the game. And after about a year, he asked me to come on board and answer some emails. Actually, at that time, Groundspeak, as we were known then, was only a handful of people. It was getting difficult for them to keep up with the email queue, and I was living in Colorado at the time. And he said, hey, do you think you could sign on every day and answer some emails? And so on my first day, I got in the queue, and there were 600 emails going back several months, for me to answer. So I cleaned those up, and then I kind of became the customer support guy. Back then, that was 2003, and after about 6 months of that, he asked me if I thought I could move out to Seattle, because there was a lot more for me to do, and I said absolutely. I came out, and I started doing all kinds of stuff. I was still answering emails, packing and shipping trackables. I was managing volunteer reviewers. I was handling merchandise distributors. I kind of became the everything else guy, because everybody else had a pretty nailed down job description. So I ended up just wearing a lot of hats. I was the first tester, and I'm not a trained tester, and anybody who was around in 2006 could probably tell you from experience that whoever was looking at the site back then was not doing such a great job, and I did my best. Now we have professionally trained testers, and I moved into more of a product owner role, which is that's a role that comes from agile software methodologies, and I won't go too far down that road because for some people it might get kind of boring. But essentially, it has a lot of similarities to what I do today as product manager, which is, I'm looking at this Venn diagram between good for the community, good for the game, and good for the business, and trying to find that sweet spot where we establish a roadmap that kind of hits all those points. So yeah, been around for quite a while, and I love it.
Nice. So you pretty much know all aspects of the business.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, I've been around, and I feel like I have a really good sense of the history of our company and of geocaching just as a game. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I know our very well-informed audience, and Nate, we do have audience members who are programmers themselves, so if you want to jump into agile programming, feel free.
Okay.
So our well-informed audience knows that the old apps for Android and iOS have been retired, and the app formerly known, it's kind of like the artist formerly known as the Intro app, is now the geocaching app. So that's the one we're going to be talking about tonight. So to kick it off, Nate, would you give us a quick rundown of what's in that app and what geocachers can do with it?
Sure, yeah. So we completely redesigned the Intro app from the ground up. One of the reasons we did that was because the code for the iPhone and the Android apps, the originals, started to just get really unruly. it would take a long time to add even the simplest things. And over the years, a lot of things got added to those apps that weren't contemplated originally. And it's similar to the website. The website has grown up over a lot of years, and it wasn't it wasn't like a planned community when we began, where everything was laid out as you would expect it to be in 10 years' time. It grew up really organically, and the iPhone and the Android apps were the same way. And the analogy I always like to think about is where you take two cities like London versus Los Angeles. London is a very old city, and the way that that city grew up was a long time before automobiles, and so all the streets and everything were originally cart paths. The consideration was not made for how an automobile would traverse that city, and so you end up now with a lot of streets that kind of intersect at strange angles, a lot of blind alleys, a lot of one-way streets that intersect other one-way streets, versus a city that's more modern, like Los Angeles, or take your pick of cities that are kind of more laid out in a gridded fashion. Those were contemplated with the mode of transportation that predominates now. Uh, I think of the website and the apps in kind of a similar way. They're we're geocaching the game is over a decade old now, and so are the tools that we use to play the game. And so um, when we come up with a new feature, we look at the cache page, which is kind of a jumble at this stage, and we would say, where's the white space? Where can we plug this new feature in? That feature had not been contemplated when the page was laid out originally. Um, so that was one of the big reasons we needed to kind of get off the old apps and start fresh with something that felt like it had a modern design, an intuitive interface, where things are where you expect them. These are decisions that we make through a lot of user testing, whereas before, we kind of just intuited ourselves how we would like to see things laid out, and we didn't always make the best decision. You learn a lot when you put these kind of things in front of geocachers when they're actually using them in the field. So those are kind of the big pieces that caused us to focus on retiring that paid app and then moving to a new kind of platform. Another big reason is the game is growing, and we like to see the game grow. We like to see more people come into the game of geocaching, because it gets better for everybody, but it only gets better if those people come in and they know what they're doing. You have new people who aren't educated in the right way, so they'll go and they'll find a cache, and maybe they'll take the cache because they don't know you're supposed to leave it in place. I mean, it sounds simple. Your audience is has a lot of experience in geocaching, but this happens, and it especially happens when people find caches that have trackables in them. They see this beautiful geocoin. We know it's meant to travel, but they think it's a trade item just like anything else. They'll take it, ends up in their glove box, in their junk drawer, and you never see it again. And that's really frustrating for a trackable owner to have that happen. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to so many other people listening right now. And that's just one way that a new person coming in without respect for the rules or the community sort of guidelines and unwritten rules, for them to be unsuccessful and kind of mess up the game. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen, and we feel like starting fresh, including a lot of tutorials and education and videos, is a way to make sure that people are onboarded in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, that leads in perfectly to our next question. Is there a target group or a target cacher that this app is intended for? Or is it more of a general caching tool? There are parts of it that still feel like it's for those who are newer or like you said, perhaps more casual than the serious cachers are looking for something they can get through maybe now third-party apps.
Yeah. Well, I would say that we want geocaching, we want to address geocaching for all skill levels. Um, we feel like we're starting at the beginning with making an accessible app that's easy and kind of inviting for newcomers. But ultimately, we would like to build an app that grows with people as they move through their geocaching journey, um, which means introducing more advanced features. But we have to be really careful about that. Every time we introduce a feature, we identify what we call personas. Um, uh, Different personas have different needs and goals when they're performing some kind of an action on the website or the mobile app. And so the persona for one feature might be new cachers. A persona for another one might be hardcore cachers. So we're gonna over time we're gonna end up with an app that has things built for different skill levels, and um, you know, it might not be all things to all people ever. We don't really know. We would like to think that that's the case, but as you know, there are as many ways to geocache as there are geocachers out there in the world.
You actually mentioned something that just triggered a lot of conversation lately has been about accessibility in apps, particularly on Android. Is accessibility, the screen readers, that kind of stuff, something that you guys are working with in these new apps? Because I don't believe the old ones supported it well.
We consider that a best practice, yeah, to pay attention to that. We have geocachers. We've profiled geocachers in some of our videos that have sort of accessibility needs. Like, for instance, we pay a lot of attention to color blindness, which I think you actually had a question that might come up later about the colors of the icons in the app changing depending if you're the owner or not. Um, we have to think really carefully about what colors we put in there, and it actually limits us in some ways to not use certain colors because we want to make sure that the information that we're trying to get across is actually available for anyone, depending on their abilities.
All right. Well, one of the things that you can't do with the app is load a GPX file, whether that's unpublished caches, private, or even if it's a live series of caches. The live caches can at least be saved to lists in the new app, but for unpublished or private caches, you'll need to use one of these third-party apps to do that.
Yeah. So it's something we've talked about doing. There are a lot of features that we have yet to implement in the app, and uh, since we are a small team, we're trying to be really careful about selecting which ones and making sure that they have the maximum impact to the community. That's one that I think that I would have to try and understand better how it's being used. How do you use that feature?
Well, for example, we had a big event at Belle Isle with 45 this year caches that had been created for to be released. But every year they go and pretty much archive the old caches and release the new ones. They work with the reviewer, so it's all caches that have been listed and ready to go. They just haven't been published until later in the day.
Mhm.
So they load the GPX file, and it's the same basic thing with like the New Year's event, but that one they do about 300 caches in that one day.
Yeah.
So it's very different in different ways, but this also comes to some of the GeoGearHeads who have written in over the years wanting to do more training caches within the official geocaching apps. Now they'd of course want to do it in the new geocaching app, but that's for like geocaching 101, scouting training, and things like that. And that's something that would really be nice to teach people how to use the caches or the app to find caches that might be a little bit easier for training, but because they're not listed on geocaching.com, they're not
Yeah.
available.
Yeah. Well, I love that training idea. We've sort of brainstormed different ways to do that too. And yeah, it having some kind of a temporary cache that is not available to everyone, is not showing up on people's nearby caches list. Um, That's a really cool idea. But as far as the GPX file, I think I understand. I've been to events before where there'll be a race or a contest, and there's maybe temporary caches set up for the event, and you see like they'll have a table set up with 10, 15 laptops and every cord known to man plugged into them, and loading GPS units with GPX files. Um, when I said I'd like to understand how people use that, one of the things that I think it's important for us to do is look at the problem that people are trying to solve, and try and look beyond the ways that they're doing it today, and think about, are there better ways to do that? One of the big features that we just released as part of the new geocaching app is lists functionality. Those lists are taking advantage right now of the pocket queries for premium members that are created on the website, and bookmarks that are created on the website. Soon you'll be able to also create them in the app, and then they'll sync back up to the website. That the lists functionality is something that when we think about it, we're looking at all the different types of lists that you can create on geocaching.com, like the watch lists, there are ignore lists, there are notifications that you create, and there are bookmark lists. We would like to roll those all up into one lists that have different actions that you can take on them. So you would create a list and then say, notify me when blah, blah, blah happens on this list, or ignore all the caches on this list. Kind of just roll them up into one. And so that's an example of where we're not satisfied. We're not content just to say copy paste features from either the old app into the new app, or from the website to the new app. We like to think about why people would choose to do those things, and is there a better way to do them? So yeah, I would look at that GPX conundrum in kind of a different light, and just try and quantify the need, and put that up against what other opportunities are out there.
All right, let's move on to a question from the live Q&A. And this comes from Wet Coaster, who asks, is there going to be a beginner setting and an experienced user setting? And this goes back to the conversation a little earlier.
We have not decided whether or not to do that, but it absolutely is something that we've discussed. So presumably, when you download the app and create an account fresh, they would be in the beginner setting, and we would kind of keep them on rails. And then if we detected that the person logging in has 1,000 cache finds, then automatically we would kind of remove all the education and the tutorials and all the cruft that is going to get in the way of that geocacher. We've talked about it. We don't have any solid plans to do that, though.
Nice. Well, staying on the theme with desired features, we've got a lot of feedback, so we're just going to toss some at you. Shermanator18 mentioned a few of her big wants. This comes through Google+. The ability to add a favorite point to a cache.
Absolutely. Yes, we want to be able to do that in the new app.
More logging options, such as need maintenance, cache owner logs, disable, enable, what have you.
Yep, we would also consider that a definite need. Yeah.
You guys are on it. Ability to drop or visit a travel bug into a cache that you're logging.
Like during the logging process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's one thing that frustrates me, not just about the new app, but with the website, and it's something we want to fix in both places. And that's that when you're logging a cache, you should be able to pick up and drop off trackables during that process, as opposed to just being able to drop them during the logging experience and having to go to the trackable page to pick them up. So there's a lot of room for improvement there, for sure, and that's something that we're going to be looking at in the near term.
Nate, something you had already mentioned earlier, icons for caches that I own should be the colors of the type of the cache they are. Currently, they're all green with white stars.
Right. Yeah, I kind of mentioned earlier that we have to be careful about the colors. I
Hmm.
like that idea. If there's a way for us to do it, then yeah, I would say for sure that's a great idea.
She goes on, there's only two more left. The ability to view pocket queries or lists on the map.
Yep. And in fact, we're working on that as we speak, and so that is going to be coming in a very in if not the next update, then one after that.
Oh, great. And the last one, you're doing a lot of souvenirs lately, and it seems like they're trying to make them a big part of the game, yet you don't have a way to view them in the app.
Yeah, souvenirs and I like to think of them as achievements. That really excites me, and I know that it excites a lot of geocachers too because it's sort of it's evidence through the desire to do challenges and to really kind of have goals that you have to sort of stretch to reach, but they're still possible, and it just
Hmm.
kind of it gives you a way. For me, I call it end game content, which is kind of it's a term that comes from the video game industry, which is like you've reached max level, and now there's end game content that keeps you coming back. Those kind of things are end game content for me. So I love souvenirs. We're going to keep coming with souvenirs, and I'd like to see them expanded in definition to not just kind of country level souvenirs or special occasions.
Nice.
Let's move on to another question from the live Q&A that I'm going to kind of answer myself. But JR and Juju asked, in the future, is there going to be the ability to have a darker screen to save battery? And the answer is that a darker screen does not save battery unless you're turning down the backlight, and that's something that you'd have to do yourself through the controls on the phone.
Right. Yeah, and I would say that there are probably other more low-hanging fruit for saving battery when it comes to that. So the frequency with which it talks to the geocaching API is one. The frequency with which it pulls the GPS location. So yeah, those are all things that we're going to be looking at because battery life. I recognize that one of the areas that handheld GPS uh, exceeds the capabilities of the smartphone is through battery life and durability. There's not much the app can do to help with durability, but battery life for sure will be on that.
So you're not going to program in waterproofing or anything like that
No,
for us?
sorry.
Oh.
Maybe we could send you like a raincoat in the mail or something like that.
Oh, there you go. Just with your premium
Premium membership
membership.
renewal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on a similar note, though, one of the things I've heard requested of many of the apps is to have like a day and night mode, so that it's darker background with lighter text at night, and brighter background and darker text during the day, for better readability. But that's something that I don't know of any of the apps currently doing.
Yeah, I like that idea, and like I said before, I think that we have, unfortunately, we're a small shop, and so we have to be really careful about the things that we choose to spend our time on. And right now, we're trying to build the base features into this app, and so things like lists and offline functionality. We know that um, everybody can take advantage of those features. And so we've never lacked for good ideas here. We have 2,000 priority one features in the backlog, and so we have to be really thoughtful about where we focus our energies.
Sure. And can you kind of talk to how many developers are on the project?
So we have an Android and iPhone team, and there are three on the iPhone team and two on the Android team. And that's just developers, and I think that what focusing on only them kind of leaves out is that there's an entire team of people supporting those developers as well. So we have product people who are on my team. We have design experts, both user experience and user interface design experts. We have a creative team that creates the assets, so sort of the graphical assets. Um, Marketing that helps us kind of communicate out the features, and I'm leaving a bunch of people out, but suffice to say that it definitely takes a village to build an app.
Sure, and that's actually Greenwords emailed us about some of that kind of stuff. And she says, I've been caching for about 2 years, my husband for about 6. My background is as a software developer, software tester, and a tech writer. So her first question is, how much beta testing, if any, do you do on the new app?
Yeah, that's a big question, or a big answer at least. We do a lot of different kinds of testing, and as well as insights gathering. But I can get into that later. But on the testing side, we have a group of beta testers. Currently closed. We're not accepting new folks into that program, but they receive updates every time we send out a beta. Um, we're always getting feedback from them. Also internally, anyone with an iPhone or an Android, any of the lackeys around here will also get pinged, and we'll get to try out those new features too, and offer feedback. There's other channels for beta testing as well, where we contract with a local company that helps us source testers to come in and do usability testing. So they'll come into the office, and then we'll set up a camera and record all of their interactions with new features, and take copious notes on what they struggled with, what worked, and they're able to find us experienced geocachers and people who have never heard about geocaching. And then we also go out and we have an account on a web-based beta testing program, which will let us do kind of paper prototype type usability testing.
And then where do you get your ideas for the new app? Focus groups, HQ employees, etc.?
They can come from anywhere. I don't feel like I don't prejudge a good idea based on its source. So we're always asking the community. Lackeys can come up with an idea. It doesn't matter where and what department they work in. One of the things we started doing over the last couple years is something called innovation games, where it's kind of like a creative brainstorming session where you get people to play a game to deliver insights and ideas. And there are a number of different games, but basically the idea is when people play a game, they'll reveal much more about what their true needs are, as opposed to just flat out asking them, because a lot of times people don't actually know what they want until they're either caught off guard, or can do the thing. So we also go out and we do we watch people geocache and observe kind of what their behavior is with a new feature.
That's really called stalking.
Yeah. Usually we tell them that
Oh,
we're
okay.
doing it. Yeah. But you're right. When they don't know we're there, they're much more likely to behave as they would normally. So we like to go to events. It's a great place to meet geocachers, great place to get feedback from experienced geocachers. Whenever people come to the office, we play games occasionally. There are always people visiting HQ. Anybody out there, you're welcome to come visit us. We have an awesome lobby experience. Huge geocache, looks like a treasure chest. Sometimes when they come in, we'll throw up one of the we call them guerrilla games, because they're like innovation games that you can kind of just hit and run with. They don't take a lot of prep. You can just grab people for 15 minutes and you get a bunch of insights from them. So we'll do stuff like that. And then of course the forums are a big source of information too, about what's working, what's not. We do surveys. I mean, I could go on and on, but there's no channel that we have not at least attempted to kind of leverage to get this information.
Nice. Well, we have more questions. We asked ahead of time, and friend of the show, Wooden Radio, emailed with many of his complaints about the iOS app. And we also have live Q&A going on. So Shermanator18 asked a question that I think dovetails well with what Wooden Radio asked. So Shermanator says, the app jumps right to the map when you open it. Uses a lot of data. Could there be a splash screen of some sort that would allow you to use less data? And Wooden Radio says, the app is slow, painfully so. So I think, a lot of that is the same issue.
Yep. Yeah, I like the splash screen idea. I think that's worth testing. You know, we should see, you know, in an A/B test what performs better, what do people kind of enjoy more. In terms of the slowness, I totally get it. The app has been extremely slow lately. So part of that is in the quantity of data we're asking. The app is asking
Mm-hmm.
through the API calls. Um, Back up to geocaching. Um, so we're actually currently running a test on the Android platform to determine what are people's reactions. And I almost hesitate to say because I don't want people to change their behavior and skew the results, but I don't think actually knowing would change it that much. But basically, when the app loads, um, traditionally we've asked for 500 geocaches at that point where the user is, and that's a lot of data, and it's actually a big reason for the slowness and kind of the skipping that you notice when you're scrolling through cache descriptions. And so we're testing 400, we're testing 200, as 100, and depending on which mode, which variant of the test that you're in, you'll see a different amount. And what we're really trying to figure out is that okay? Do people enjoy that experience? Is 100 enough? You know, and people could have vastly different experiences depending if they're, you know, if we're here in Seattle, you just scrolling a little bit and you get a ton of caches. But if you happen to be in somewhere more remote, then it might not be a problem for you. So that is something we're trying to optimize. There are other calls that we make through the API asking for a specific amount of data that in some cases may not be necessary. So what we like to do is just test different variants of those things, and then through the data and people's behavior, kind of make a decision on what's the best experience for everybody.
I like that. Wooden Radio goes on to say, when you're on the cache, the About button only shows a few lines of description, and then to get more, there's a More button. You know,
Right.
that you went to the page to get more information. It shouldn't be a two-step process.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I guess my counterpoint would be somebody might be going to the cache description to get the trackable information. And if there's an incredibly long cache description, then they're going to be inconvenienced scrolling past that huge description to get to the trackable information. And that's just in our current cache details incarnation. As we add more features, that page is going to get even more busy. So I wouldn't outright dismiss the idea of, you know, opening the cache description up. I think that's also a good thing to test and just see, you know, in all circumstances, what is the best behavior to have.
He goes on. He says, when adding a waypoint to the current when adding a waypoint, the current position is truncated, and it's hard to do math on numbers that are hidden.
Yeah, I couldn't validate. I saw that one too, and I couldn't reproduce that error.
Okay.
I opened it up and I tried adding a waypoint and I got the full coordinate. So I would need more information about that problem.
I have to go look myself. Okay. The last one from Wooden Radio says, when I receive a new cache notification emails, there's a link. At one time, it went to the old app. Now it wants to go to Safari and the web page rather than having the option to open in the app.
Totally aware of that issue we were just talking about today. If it's not already fixed, and I'm sorry that I didn't clarify that beforehand, but if it's not already fixed, it's going to be fixed very soon. We want all core.info links to open up in the app, and then once you're in the app, if you really just wanted to go to the website, there's at least in the latest versions, there's in the top right a way to click through to the website and open the in-app browser instead.
We did get more Q&A, though, from Wet Coaster. This really goes back to some of the stuff we've already been talking about. The first one was possibly making display settings editable and make it possible to keep different display profiles.
What does it mean by display settings?
I'm assuming that he's talking about like the day and night modes and the request for like the high contrast modes.
Mm-hmm. I think having settings where they make sense is totally fine. My preference would be not to have settings and just pick the correct one. I recognize that there are a lot of different preferences for people, and so in some cases we could have different settings, but it actually complicates things pretty immensely when you start implementing things two different ways or even more different ways. So we try not to do that, but if there's a need demonstrated, then absolutely we'd be into that idea.
And then his next one is how about making the number of caches that load at the beginning selectable by the user? He says 50, 100, like you were just talking about. Again, user profile kind of setting.
I feel like that's a really good idea. Yeah, I guess if you had a really fast connection or you were data rich, you had you're like me and you have 15 gigs to burn through in a month of data um, spoiled, then maybe that would be okay to get that many caches. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's a common setting in some of the third-party apps that you have. Like 20 is the starting number of caches that it's going to load, but you can bump it up to like 50 or 100 or whatever.
Yeah.
But it does definitely slow it down. So we can
Yeah.
see
not
where.
them all.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that might be nice going along with that is actually don't automatically load any caches, because it might be that you're not looking to find caches around you. So
Yeah, maybe
there
you
might,
went in log a trackable.
yes, yeah, log a trackable, or check out what caches are near the hotel that you're going to stay at that night, or
Right.
something
Right.
like that.
I like that idea. Yeah.
All right.
Nice.
So yeah, lots of good questions and feedback. And before we go, is there anything that you want to share that might be coming in the not so distant future?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, so we still have more work to do with lists. Like I said before, we're absolutely not done. It's the first implementation. Um, One of the coolest things about lists for me is the fact that they syncs across web and mobile. Um, with the old app, you could create lists, you had offline functionality. That was all good, but it never synced back up to the website. So I think that's going to be extremely powerful. So some of the things that we know we want to do with that is the ability to create and edit lists right on the device, not just on the website, and the ability to view a list on the map without uh, other caches kind of distracting your view. Just the caches on the list. That's a big part of it. Um, we're not sure how far we're going to take lists from there before moving on to something else. Something else we'd like to see in the app is the ability to view geotours, and to make that possible for basic members too. It, geotours tend to be really fun caches and really well maintained and kind of themed experiences, so you get a little bit more out of them. So that feels like a great way to introduce basic members to other cache types in the app. So that's something we want to look at too. And then of course we know that um, we're not done uh, with addressing some of the features that were left behind in the other app. Things like favorite points and souvenirs, all the logging types that we talked about earlier. Those are things that we definitely want to get into the new app so that it feels like home. It feels like it has the complete geocaching experience, and you don't feel like you're sacrificing anything to move away from that old app to the new app. So we just want to be really thoughtful about the features that we work on. Um, we want to make sure that it doesn't feel like a sacrifice to move away from the paid app. And so we're going to keep that app working and functional until we feel good about the new app.
Well, I know quite a few cachers who are probably request that when you do add in the log types that you forget about the needs maintenance, or not the needs maintenance, but the needs
Needs
archived
archive.
option.
Yeah.
They want us just to forget about it, huh?
Yeah. They keep complaining about people flagging needs archived inappropriately.
Yeah, well, with great power becomes great responsibility, right?
Exactly.
That
But
pesky attribute.
yeah, but for anyone who does want to submit their feature requests or bugs and that kind of stuff, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. Well, we're all occasionally we'll post a thread in the forums asking for really specific insights, and then of course the general forums are great. The problem with posting them in the general forums is well, I wouldn't say it's a problem, but um, there's a lot of activity that happens in there, and we're very busy building what we hope is an awesome app, so that we don't always respond to all of them, but we do see them. So we love feature requests. I never want to discourage people from sending those in, but mainly I would keep an eye on the user insights forum. So when we're specifically asking for insights on a certain feature that we're focusing on, people can post there, and then it's all collected in one place. It's really helpful.
I love it. Nate, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us this evening. We
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
This was really fun. Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Now, to our loyal listeners, don't forget that we're giving away a trackable state flag tag from coinsandpins.com each week through the end of April to one iTunes or Stitcher reviewer. Now, this week it was Limax with a review from August of last year, so it doesn't matter when you submitted the review. But we want your honest review. You don't have to sugarcoat it for us. We're big boys. We want your honest review and rating for the GeoGearHeads on either iTunes or Stitcher. We'll take a look at any of the reviews on either service within the last year and pick one at random. If you have reviewed on iTunes and Stitcher, you'll double your chances. So we'll call out that name of the iTunes or Stitcher reviewer, and then that person will have 4 weeks to contact us. It's that easy. Submit a review of GeoGearHeads to iTunes or Stitcher by the end of April 2016, and you'll have a chance to win one of these cool state tag flags from coinsandpins.com, which, did I mention, is trackable at geocaching.com.
And we're not unlike the guys over here at geocaching.com. We want that feedback too, and those feature requests. We might ignore it, but we want to get it. Well, let's talk about the upcoming features, and the first one is going to be April 14th, next weekend. Or next week, I should say, not next weekend, but project-gc.com. Once again, we're going to be talking with Magnus about some of the new stuff over there. Then on the 21st, Boating 3. This one's going to be really cool. I was just talking with him this morning, and he's got some cool stories to share about doing long trips on kayaks, canoes, that kind of stuff, without any outside support. So make sure to join us for that one. Then we're going to have our next randomized show on April 28th. And, of course, we're going to have Rock Chalk back again on May 5th with geocaching.com insights. So we'll get to learn much more about geocaching.com.
I love it. Until then, don't forget to check the website at cachemaniacs.com. For more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes from this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing GeoGearHeads at cachemaniacs.com or through the many channels of social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniac shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2016 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with a Cachemaniac.